Questions about earthquakes. Not totally weather, but still earth science. And as a scientist on TV, it's our job to talk about those also. So how do we get earthquakes at all? Well, the first thing you need to know is that the earth is actually always moving. The land masses are on different plates that could be moving apart or moving together. Let me show you what I'm talking about. Right in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean, there is a fault line that's slowly moving apart. The Atlantic Ocean growing at about 2.5 centimeters each year. Meanwhile, the Himalayan mountains, just the opposite. There's two plates there coming together, forcing up the land into some of the biggest mountains that we have on Earth. So what about the small-scale motion of an earthquake? That's right at the fault line. There's a couple of different motions that you can get. You can get a sliding earthquake where the two different sides of the earth are moving back and forth very quickly. You can also get what's known as a dip-slip earthquake, where one side actually drops down dramatically, and that can be some of the biggest earthquakes that we see.
And now for part 2 and part 3, how do tsunamis and sinkholes form from start to finish? So a start of tsunami can be an earthquake, and also can be a volcanic explosion or some kind of big event that happens underwater. But let's take an earthquake, for example. It can reshape the seafloor, and it can displace or move a large volume of water, and so that water needs somewhere to go. So when the earthquake disrupts the underwater part, it starts to bring in these waves that start to radiate outwards, and they could be up to speeds of 500 miles an hour. And then as all this water that's been moved starts rushing closer to the coastline, it starts to slow, and it reaches the shallower parts of the coastal areas, and that increases the height. We're talking many-story building height, even up to 10 stories. That's how high those waves can get as they reach the coastline. And then we talk about sinkholes. Now, sinkholes, they're a little interesting here. We have the land surface, the sandy soil. Below it, we usually get sinkholes when we have some type of rock below that naturally dissolves with the groundwater. So, for instance, limestone. So as we get the water that starts to fall, the rain sinks down, starts to pick up a little bit of acidity, and eats away at, for instance, the limestone. And so what happens is you get these caverns, these caves that start to form, and they can be there for a very long time until they get too big. And then the top part, all of this surface water starts to, or surface along the ground here starts to collapse, and it creates that sinkhole. So again, it can make it look like it comes out of nowhere, but some of those have been sitting there for quite some time. It just takes that extra bit of water to get that sinkhole to form. Keep sending us those great questions on social media. We'll answer some of them right here on air as we move through our Saturday.